Sarajo with Global Tech Women. Welcome back to Voices 2015, version 3.0 of our annual event celebrating women in technology around the world. And we hold this session, this global event, the week of International Women's Day. So we are on for the last session of day 4, and we saved the best for last because we have Roberta Guise here, who's going to talk about how to speak out and change the world. We were just talking about it. This is going to be the brain flossing moment of the day. So we hope that you're ready for this, that you've got your coffee and or glass of wine, and you're prepared to be inspired and to think about what it is that you're doing both now and in the future. And a couple of things that you need to know about Spreecast. There's a chat window over on the right-hand side. I hope that you'll put your questions in there. I hope that you'll introduce yourselves, and it's an opportunity to network. And also, as you're putting in those questions in, I will keep them in a little spot over here, and when Roberta is ready for questions, I will to her. And secondly, we're going to have a PowerPoint deck that's going to launch here in about 30 seconds. So I'm going to put it up here. And you need to drag and drop that somewhere on the screen so that you can watch Roberta, and you can watch the deck and chat in the chat window. And we'll have to follow along in her slides. So she's going to let us know what slide number she's on, and then we will use the little advance button on the slide deck. I'm going to put it up right now so that you can see what I'm talking about, because I sense confusion there. So here's the deck. Hope you all can see it. So you can drag and drop this thing anywhere on the screen you'd like. And you can see that she's got 35 slides. So, and you can see the little right arrow advancing. So as she goes through her deck, she will let us know what slide number she's on so that we can advance the slides. Okay, does anybody have any questions? If you do, just throw them in the chat window, or you can email me at deanna@globaltechwomen.com, or you can tweet me at globaltechwomen, and I will be looking for questions and comments about this session. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Roberta. Are you ready to go, Roberta?
I sure am, Deanna. Thank you very much. And welcome to all of you, wherever you're located around the world. This is an exciting time because, yes, it is International Women's Week and after Women's International Day. And I am at the UN Commission on the Status of Women in New York for the first week of 2 weeks of meetings, where we're discussing women's rights, women's human rights, and all kinds of issues that we know are so important for women and girls around the globe. So in the next hour, we're going to look at how you can accelerate your career by beefing up your personal brand and becoming known as a thought leader. Whether you're an individual contributor in your company or you're in leadership, you're a consultant or you own a small business, the principles and steps, they're pretty much the same for the most part. So let's go to the next slide, slide number 2. So I'm going to advance mine here. Learning this technology. All right. So before we get going, I just want to point out that my work and my clients are right now all US based. So for any of you not in the US, please share any comments about your country if what I say doesn't apply and you'd like to know how it could apply to you. And also know that I've angled the content towards women. So any of our male viewers, and I have invited a few, I hope you're on, please adapt the content to your situation. And I know you'll do that very well. So what I do is I guide passionate individuals, especially women, to become known as leading authorities in their field. And I advise experts and small business owners on how to be extraordinarily visible. My story, well, you know, I've been working for myself most of my adult life, and that was because I actually felt safer, because I came from a rather negative set of messages growing up, which I took into adulthood, and I successfully flunked out of high school 3 times. And when I came to this country in my mid-20s, a friend said, you know, if you want to get anywhere in life, Roberta, you have got to get an education. And I did get my high school equivalency here in the US and then went on to become a video producer. And I did that for quite a few years. I was pretty good at it. But then I felt, there's got to be something more in life than this. And I started looking for meaning, but I didn't know where to look. And you probably had the experience that if you don't know what to do, and you can't find the answers, maybe you don't think to even look very far and you just abandon it. And I did abandon it. Around the mid 90s, I started to get this sort of stirring that I wanted to do something to help women. And I'd gone back to school to get my master's degree. And at the same time, I wrote a proposal to tutor girls in math, science, and technology online. Now, this was 1 year before Google was founded. I took it to an instructor at my university, and he essentially looked down his nose at me and said, "Nobody's going to fund that." Well, of course, I wasn't too happy about it, but he said, "You need a nonprofit." I didn't know how to do that. And again, this pattern, I didn't know what to do, so I abandoned it. But every so often, I'd sort of get this stirring coming up. And I was successful as a marketing consultant. And then one day, a few years ago, I got an email from AAUW, American Association of University Women. They were inviting me to join them to write opinion pieces about the issues that they advocate for. This is an advocacy organization that's been around since 1881, and it's now gone international, as a matter of fact. So they cared about things like STEM for women and girls, paycheck fairness, Title IX, which is the equal access to girls in any educational institution that gets federal funds, Social Security, all those kinds of issues that we as women really care about. And I got the op-eds published, and then I thought, maybe I'll just check this out a little bit more. And I went to a convention of the state AUW, met somebody there and she said, let me take you under my wing. What are you doing? And I said, I don't know. She says, well, why don't you get into public policy? And I said to her, what's public policy? So the point I'm making here is I now embarked on this process of discovery. I realize now that, yes, I had this passion for women and girls and to do something, although I still wasn't quite sure what it would be. And then a year ago, I hit on it. It was to help women in technology, to help them get jobs, keep their jobs, get the right skills, match the employers to the talent. And so I just founded a nonprofit called Fem Resources to do just that. So this is the very beginning. I've only had this as a nonprofit for 3 weeks since I got the articles in incorporation, and it's definitely a work in process. So I give you this background to let you know is that I'm sort of a late bloomer. And if you're thinking out there, well, I don't know my passion. I don't, how can I ever get to that? I'm going to show you how to get to it. And here I am as Exhibit A. All right, let's move on to slide number 3. Apologize for the delay here as it still hasn't advanced. Yeah, no, my slide is not advancing on the, oh, here we go. All right. So I want you to know that I'm deeply committed to helping you find your voice and being able to use it. And in the next hour, I'm going to show you how your voice will be most powerful and most effective when it comes from your passion to make a difference. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, it's coming up. So here's today's agenda. We're going to unpack trending words and issues. There are a few terms we hear over and over, like the term unpacking. I've just heard it a couple of times in the past few days here at the UN. We'll go over what it means to have passion to make a difference, that I see this really as the underpinning of becoming a thought leader. We'll do a deep dive into the world of thought leaders and influencers. We'll look at why we need more women influencers. We're going to go over the 7 steps to becoming a thought leader. We'll definitely look at overcoming obstacles. And then we'll touch on what success looks like for you, because success is personal. You determine what success is. And it can be big, it can be small, and it can be incremental. All right, move to your next slide, number 5. That pointer on it. Okay, so one of the words that we tend to hear a lot about is I want to change the world, or I want to find meaning in my career. And what this really is about is wanting to make a difference. And wanting to make a difference is about finding your passion. Because once you've got your passion, the passion is going to move you to make some change somewhere. Deep passion, the kind of thing that where you're unstoppable, you could bend metal with it. So keep that in mind. Passion so deep that you could bend metal with it. Nothing's going to stop you. Another term we see is this authenticity. I sort of didn't like it for a while because it was coming up so much, and now it seems to have sort of got a little bit of gravitas. But it's really about being true to yourself and finding that place of meaning and passion and sticking with it. Now, your passion can change over time. It doesn't have to be fixed in place. But what I'm trying to emphasize and hope that you can adopt for yourself is that from today on, you have some kind of passion that becomes a guiding light for you throughout the rest of your life. And if it changes, it changes. But there's still a passion there guiding you. Thought leadership, well, it's being the person that other people want to hear from. They want to hear from you and they want to be around you because you're leading the way with your way of looking at things. And we're going to, of course, talk about that shortly. And then we're going to look at personal branding. And I've heard a lot about that lately. And I thought, I'm going to present it here today. And the way we look at personal branding is how you show up, what we think of you, what others think of you, and does that match what you want us to think of you? And we'll talk about that in more detail in a moment. So slide number 6. It's like juggling balls here. All right, imagine that you're going to give a TED Talk. Now, for those of you in other countries that you may not be familiar with TED, but I hope you are, but just let's say you're not familiar with TED. TED is this platform where people who have big ideas, different ideas, novel ideas, they've really got something that the TED organizers think is important. And then they rehearse like crazy for about 6 months and they put out an 18-minute video in front of an audience, and then it's put out onto YouTube, and some of them go viral with over 1 million views. But most of them are, they get a good traction, get quite a few viewers. So these TED videos, I believe it stands for technology, entertainment, or engineering and design. I forget the exact letters. But just imagine giving a TED Talk. So what would your topic be? What big theme do you think you'd want to convey? What would you want to suggest that we change our thinking about? Because that's the idea of a TED Talk. So I'm suggesting a TED Talk because it just so nicely encapsulates what a theme or an idea or a concept can be. And we'll be using that term idea and concepts throughout the next hour. So now let's look at what an influencer is. An influencer is someone who shapes opinions. I persuade you to think about something in a different way. And hopefully at the end of this webinar, you'll be thinking about 1 or 2 things in a different way than you were thinking about them when we came on earlier. Probably the most recent famous influencer, woman influencer, she reignited the public discussion about gender equality, and in particular in the workplace. You probably know who I'm talking about. It's Sheryl Sandberg. She did a TED Talk. Then she was on the speaking circuit. Excuse me. Then she published her now famous book, Lean In. She's continuing to push for gender equality through writing and partnerships and all kinds of coalitions that she's forming. Excuse me, I need to cough. So Sheryl Sandberg is an extreme example, and I'm going to bring it down now to scale to sort of our level of people we know, our colleagues. And one of these is a client of mine, and her name is Lorraine. She's a chemical engineer. She's an expert in water management, industrial water management. So she advises clients on how to get the right chemical mixtures in their water, but at the same time, she's advising them on how not to get in trouble because of bad water. I know she'll kill me with using this jargon, but really she's advising them on how to mitigate and minimize the amount of risk from water that's running through their big industrial manufacturing systems. So Lorraine is grooming herself, we're grooming her to be the leading contrarian voice on a bacterium called Legionella. A number of years ago, we had in the United States Legionnaire's disease, and it periodically pops up in different places. And her contrarian view is don't test for Legionella bacteria. I'm not going to get into all the details why right now, but all the scientists are saying, yes, you've got to test for Legionella bacteria. And Lorraine is saying, that is not what you should be doing. So she's really putting herself out there, and she's very bold, and we'll be visiting the concept of being bold in a moment. So who else can become an influencer or an opinion leader? Essentially, experts in any field. It's technical workers, business leaders, economists, historians, scientists, academics, and you, okay? You can become an influencer. You can become a thought leader. And shortly, I'm going to give you pretty much a prescription of how to do it. All right, let's move on to slide number 7. So people are going to look to you because you've been bold enough. We just talked about bold, right? Bold enough to step up and let them know about your ideas. And right here, right now, if you've got an idea, let's say about a process change or bringing different groups of people together who need one another, in your workplace, or you've got a way to do things differently, and I'm speaking both to consultants and to people who do work for a company. If you have a way to do things differently, even if you've got a new product design, why don't you post a comment and we'll try to call them out as examples, or at least Deanna will for us. So let's see here. We're going to go to slide number 8. All right, so this diagram shows you the advantages to becoming a thought leader or an influencer. I use those two terms interchangeably. When you're an influencer, this is your opportunity to make a difference, where this is where you've put your passion into action, and people have already said, this person is an influencer. She or he has really got something to say that we care about, and we're going to follow what this person says. You have a recognizable brand. This means that you're known for your ideas and thinking because you come across a certain way, your ideas sound and look a certain way. And when somebody says your name, we get an image in our mind's eye of who you are, what you think, what you stand for, and all those kinds of things. You can probably think right now about somebody and you can get a mental picture very quickly, only takes a few seconds. And that's your recognizable brand. Then if we go down to the bottom here of our diagram for prestige and income, hey, doesn't it feel good to be acknowledged? So at work, you're more likely to be promoted, and if you're self-employed, you have a small company, clients are going to be seeking you out more because they see you as somebody who really understands their universe and they want to learn more from you. And then there's the legacy piece of this. And the legacy piece, of course, has to do with making a difference. And there's so many different ways to make a difference. In this case, we're talking primarily, not exclusively, but primarily about putting your ideas in writing, and later on also we'll be talking about speaking and using other media to convey your ideas. So let's move to slide number 9. I have to say, I think this is my most favorite slide. Well, I've got another one that's favorite and it's going to come up in a minute. I love this because this is so foundational. This is the foundation of what it takes to become a thought leader. I've boiled it down into these 3 essences. The first one is right at the top there, the top bubble. You've got to have experience, meaning you have to have done the work. You can't put yourself out there without having some kind of experience, because then you lose credibility. So once you've done it, you've got the credibility, no question about it. Now, the way I define expertise is you know what you're doing and you have the ability to communicate it. So expert, you've done it. Expertise, you know how to communicate it. And this third bubble, well, this is the one we've been talking about, is really the piece that if you have the other 2, if you've got the experience and you've got the expertise, but you don't have the passion, then it's not going to happen. You have to have this fire in the belly to really want to make a change. And again, as we said earlier, it can even be just a very small slice of life. It doesn't have to be global, like we're talking about here at the UN. These are really global, massive changes. It can be in your workplace or your universe of clients, like Lorraine. She's looking to really make a difference in the lives of all people who handle water in a manufacturing or in a heating cooling type of situation. So I have a client who leads a nonprofit whose mission is to give young women and girls tools to resist distorted media images that can give them really lowered self-esteem about themselves. And those of us who've grown up around those kind of images know that it's very easy to be swayed and be convinced that we need to look a particular way. But when you do that to a teenage girl's brain, boy, it just really imprints. So just recently here in the US, Sports Illustrated came out with its annual swimsuit issue. And that's always the big issue that sells over 1 million copies just because there are these gorgeous models in their skimpy little swimsuits, and they've been photoshopped to death to look perfect. Well, I worked with my client on writing an opinion piece, which was published in the San Francisco Chronicle, and she tied perfection to the distorted images of the perfect bodies. And these distortions, talked about the distortions being photoshopped to give us this image of perfection that we should all aspire to, or that we say, if it's anything less than this, can it even be real? When actually, we're looking at a manufactured reality here. But her name is Jennifer, she's constantly developing her own original ideas, and she's just absolutely passionate to make a change and make sure that girls and young women don't get swayed and influenced by these negative images. Back to Lorraine, my chemical engineer client, and we said she's bold. To her, being a contrarian is the ethical position. She told me, I have a responsibility to my clients. That's it. So for her, it's a done deal to be a contrarian. And there's just no question that she has to do it. All right, let's move on to slide number 10. And like I said, this is another of my really favorite slides. because of what it stands for. So a lot of people conflate or misuse, in my opinion, misuse the word thought leader and exchange it for expert, meaning they just say that if you're writing an article, ergo, you are a thought leader. And I say, no, that is not the definition of a thought leader. You're a really great expert, and there are tons of really good experts. So if you look at the bottom near the tail there, we talk about expertise and being competitive. Right there, if you are an expert and you've not been speaking much or hardly at all, and you've not been writing about your field, you're in a category of many. And there's nothing wrong with being there, but let's say you aspire to something different. You want to get out of being in a category of many and start to move your way up this spectrum here to becoming distinctive. So when you start writing about your ideas and talking about them, giving public presentations, now you start to get more distinctive. And moving along the spectrum to thought leadership, to where you really break through, that's where you've earned the right to become called a thought leader. So again, Sheryl Sandberg with her Lean In, that was absolutely breakthrough. That was thought leadership. And because she's ignited conversations that are still going on 2 years later, I would say right now she's the most influential woman in business, at least in business, and to many women, at least in the United States and possibly in other countries as well. I'd love to hear your views on that. Excuse me. Now, in technology, we have somebody from Cisco, and I'm sure some of you are familiar with her, Padmasree Warrior. She's the Chief Technology and Strategy Officer at Cisco. And Forbes listed her in 2014 as the 71st most powerful woman in the world. Her ideas are about enabling the future through technology. So the media considers her to be the likely successor to Cisco CEO John Chambers. But you know what? She, to me, is really cool because she's got more than 1.5 million followers on Twitter. And I think that's budding thought leadership. So we're going to be hearing more, I believe, from Padmasree Warrior. Let's go to slide number 11. So there's no question that if you put effort into becoming a thought leader, that your career is going to take flight. Remember that trajectory that if you get you from being an expert to being distinctive, as you move along that spectrum, you're going to see amazing things happen for you. Now, let's say you're already on a career trajectory. So you can add thought leadership as an overlay. And I can almost guarantee you that you're going to start flying really high and accelerate your career. And this is whether you're in a company or whether you're self-employed or you have you're the owner of a small business. But let's say your area of thought leadership is outside of work. It's not in the marketplace. It's not in business. You may have an idea for the community and something that's a novel example. Well, we have a novel example here of a woman who decided she was going to help the homeless. I met her in person last week at a women's award presentation she won in San Francisco, my hometown. And her name is Denise Sandoval. So let's go to the next slide, slide number 12. So she's influencing people by having a novel idea and acting on it. She was working as a marketer to tech companies in New York. She came back to San Francisco and was shocked to see, not only to see so many homeless on the streets of San Francisco, but that they lacked basic hygiene. They had no access to showers. And so many of those people don't sleep in shelters for a variety of reasons. So their hygiene is literally zero. She came up with the idea to take old municipal buses and convert them to shower stalls and bathrooms. She took the idea to a former city supervisor who is now the city's leading homeless advocate, and she told me that he rolled his eyes and told me to go and do some homework, which she did, because remember, she got really passionate about this. And so was born the entity called, as you can see, Lava May. And I went online and it said that Lava May really means, it's not exactly spelled that way, but it's essentially Spanish for wash me. So the mission of Lava May is to deliver dignity one shower at a time. And Denise is really making the change that she wants to see one shower at a time for sure, because her idea turned action into action that is absolutely thought leading and influencing. Okay, moving on to slide number 13. So what gets influenced? These are some of the areas of our lives. You know, we've got our workplace processes, behaviors, and policy all within the workplace. Products and product safety, the education system, healthcare, immigration, human rights, policy. And, you know, while you're looking at this slide, I want to mention again that I'm here at the UN, at the Commission on the Status of Women, that's holding its annual meeting. And all week we've been listening mostly women from all over the world. And it's not governments that are making change. From previous conferences that they had a platform for action that came out of Beijing in 1995, and they've been working on that for the last 20 years. But the governments haven't been doing the action. It's people in the non-governmental organizations, or as they say, people on the ground, the boots on the ground, that have really been making the change. And they're influencing policy in their countries for basic gender equality for women and girls, and giving girls access to an education. 20 years ago, girls weren't even getting an access to secondary education. Now they are. Majority of girls around the world are, elementary education. Majority of girls around the globe are now at least finishing an elementary education. And that's all because of the influences of these great people who are just so committed to their work and to getting it done. Slide number 14 coming up. So to sum this all up, as an influencer, as a thought leader, you're someone people seek out because of your opinions, because of the way you think about things. And this helps accelerate where you want to go with your life and the difference you want to make. Remember that passion? That passion is going to drive the difference that you want to make. All right, next slide, number 15. So if you'll please permit me, I'm going to get up on my soapbox. I can't do this without saying a few things. How can women shape opinions and influence us if their voices, our voices, your voices, aren't there? They're missing. The short answer is they can't. If you look at this slide with all these numbers, you can see just how really pathetic it is. Women are around 50% of the population of the world, and we're missing in influencing and guiding policy or making policy around the world. Let's go to slide number 16. Soapbox continues a little bit longer. So let's put these numbers in perspective. These are companies that I'm not sure if you can actually read them. We've got Twitter, eBay, Apple, LinkedIn, Hewlett Packard, Intel. So the companies we interact with every day, and even in non-technical jobs such as HR and marketing, on average, on average, women make up only 30% of employees of the company. And you may have heard the technical women side of things, they're on average 17%. So women aren't represented enough in the firms to be influential. Now, in 2014, Facebook's user population was 77% women. Could more women in leadership or more than 17% of engineers have ideas that would make that site more meaningful for women users? I think so, and I think you probably think so as well. Okay, let's go to slide number 17. As I mentioned, I live in San Francisco, and many days I leave the house around 7 o'clock in the morning to go swim in our San Francisco Bay, which is a lovely big frigid body of water. So I drive through areas where we have what are now called famous Google buses, but actually it's buses that leave for eBay, LinkedIn, Facebook, all the big technology companies that are located south of San Francisco. And they pick up employees. Well, the employees line up on the sidewalks as they wait for the bus to arrive. And I've conducted a visual experiment. I started counting at each of these stops how many men there were and how many women. And I found out that for every 10 men in line, there's perhaps one, maybe two women. That's it. So the numbers in the slide here are borne out by the evidence on the sidewalks at 7 a.m. in San Francisco on weekdays. It's pretty obvious that technical teams are missing women. And most importantly, the teams and the companies and all of us are missing women's ideas. Can you bear with me just a little bit longer on my soapbox? So in consumer media, we're not seeing many women influencing conversations. So here in the US, we have Sunday talk shows. 85% of the experts who are brought into these talk shows are still men. And these are influential talk shows. All the politicians watch them. They want to know what people think, and that guides the policy. Women missing, women don't influence policy. Policy's not influenced by women, then those things that can affect us and impact us or be to our benefit are missing. Okay, move to your next slide, number 19. If we look by topics, this is from the New York Times. So influential topics such as sports, science, opinion, technology, the world, business, politics, they're all dominated by male writers, which you can see at the top because that's where there are very few women. And as you look down this graph and you see where the gray comes more towards the bottom of the right, that's where you have topics like health and entertainment and family, and those are the topics that are written by women. So the most important issues that impact people's lives, the articles are being written by men. Then we've got submitting opinion pieces to publications. Only 20% of opinion pieces on average across the country are being submitted to the big media publications by women. In a couple of places it may be 22%, but in other media markets it may be 15 or 14 or 13%. Again, women's ideas just aren't out there. I want you to help change the status quo, that you'll take every opportunity, give me your commitment now, to take every opportunity to get your ideas heard. Have the ideas and then be bold enough to get them heard. All right, let's go to the next slide. Oh, look, I'm off my soapbox. All right. So I realize that we're covering a lot, and I want to encourage you to feel free to contact me offline if you have any questions. And my email will be on the slide at the end. And you can also get in touch with Deanna if you happen to miss that. So on the conference description, it says 6 steps, but in fact, I decided to modify it for our session today, and there are 7 steps. I'd also like to let you know that I'm offering 1 hour of free phone or Skype consulting to the first 5 people to sign up. And the consulting session can be on anything of your choosing. Hopefully it's about, hey, how can I become a thought leader? Here's my situation. I'd love to work on that with you. So wherever you are, I don't care wherever you are in the country, in the world, I hope that you'll take me up on this offer. Okay, so the 7 steps to thought leadership, and we're going to go through each one of these in detail. We're going to build your support scaffold. We're going to look at how you suss out your passion to make a difference. We'll do a deep dive into developing your personal brand, writing about your core idea, some ways to develop that. We'll look at what it means to distribute your writing and also to present and speak on your core idea. And then we'll look at how to keep it new and fresh. Okay, next slide. So I'm suggesting here, I'm calling it a support scaffold because you really need something that's going to be a strong structure around you. Anything that's just sort of casual may not work. You really need something that's supporting, that when you need to, you can lean on it and it's going to hold up. That's why I called it a scaffold. Also could be because I'm married to an architect and a contractor, but so I'm thinking of scaffolds here. But what I really want to say is that you can't do this alone. Please don't try it because it's not going to work. So the building blocks to the scaffold as follows. Number 1, you're going to let your passion and drive and inspire you to take action. Think about where you want to make a difference. Now, Gandhi famously said, and forgive me if I get this a little bit wrong, but he said approximately, be the change that you want to see. So if you have the deep passion to make change, got that fire in the belly, you're determined to bend metal with your passion, nothing's going to stop you. Scaffold item number 2, you're going to find yourself a mentor. Find an inspiring female to look up to who's going to help you and be a positive influence in your life. Now, you can have a male mentor too. I happen to have a male mentor right now. But having a female mentor is really key, especially if you're younger and relatively new to this. Scaffold item number 3 is to strengthen bonds with other women. Surround yourself with other strong women that you can learn from and who you can give back to. Now, these relationships can help us build on our achievements and definitely foster positive female connections, aka networking, all that interconnectedness. And here's where we actually do need our male allies. I encourage you to bond with supportive men because we need men for balance. We need them for perspective. And I think I can feel some heads nodding. So the 4th item here in the scaffold is to take action. There's an old saying that said, good things come to those who wait. Well, I say that you could wait a long time for that to happen. And instead, I suggest that you adopt the mindset of good things will come if I go out and get them. All right, so let's move on to the next slide, which is number 22. Now, this is a process that I've come up with for coming up with your core concept or your core idea. And after I'd initially developed this, I discovered that we need to ask a whole bunch of questions before we can really solidify the idea. And if you've already got the idea in place, it's probably because you, without even realizing it, you've been through this process. If you've already done this, bear with us, all right? So the first thing you're going to do is ask, what's my passion? And if you know you've got a passion, you're going to be able to clarify it now. Where are you passionate to make a difference? Now, if you're not sure, like I was, I mean, I sort of knew, but didn't really. I knew it was something to do with women, but I couldn't figure it out, so I abandoned it. Try this. Take a look at what area of your life or work, whether it's for pay or even in as a volunteer, but it's something that you really love and that you perhaps find yourself telling people about. If you find that's a recurring theme that you're talking about or thinking about, or perhaps you even say, they should really do something about this, and you find yourself saying that along frequently, I wish I could do this, or if I had all the money in the world and money weren't an issue, I would do X. That could be where your passion is. Identify who needs this, who could it serve? You also should ask, why is it needed? What's the value to this community of people? And then you look at the outcome. What would change as a result of your idea? Once you've sort of got that in your mind, now you can start to put it down on paper or on a computer. Write just a sentence or two. It doesn't have to be fully flushed out, or maybe it's just some random words because you're still starting to articulate your idea. You may be developing a model for how to make something work better. Or as we said earlier, it's a new way to explain something. Now, if you have any of these ideas, please feel free to post them so that we can all see them. I'd like after the webinar that you go back to this slide, if you've taken notes, and while it's still fresh in your mind, go and track what your passion is and write some things down, really while it's fresh. Don't, if you can. Really important because I think you'll still have the energy from this session, and perhaps you're even writing it down now, and that would really be great. So you're going to think about the idea, and then once you've got it written down, you're going to test it. Go and run it by a colleague or a friend. See what they say. Do their eyes glaze over? Or do they go, that's interesting, tell me more? And maybe you don't have more to say, well, that's it. It's just the germ and the seed of an idea, but then you're onto something. So it's always good to test the idea and see what happens. I have to tell you that just yesterday when I told somebody about Fem Resources, the work I'm going to be doing with women in tech, we just got done with a session, and she had been telling me about all this work that she was doing, and I told her about Fem Resources. She said, oh, I'd love to volunteer. So when somebody says that to you, you're onto something good. When people want to join you and say, how can I help? Okay, we're going to move on to number 23. So now we are actually going to do an exercise because we could talk for days about developing an idea, but I wanted to give you a basic foundation for coming up with one for yourself. So think for a few moments and jot down what you're passionate about. Okay? This is going to form the basis for your core idea. Now, don't worry if you've got maybe 2 or 3 areas. I've spoken with people that say, well, wait a minute, I'm kind of passionate about more than one thing. That's okay, write them down. Because as you go through a set of exercises, you'll realize that really one of them is more important than the other. So just put them all down. And if nothing's coming up for you, then just write nothing right now, but I'm going to make a commitment to come up with something. It's as if we're filtering for a gem, and feel free again to post it in chat if you'd like to share it with everyone. We'll just take a couple more seconds. Just free form on this. Or here's how I'd love to change the world, or here's how I know I could change my workplace if only I had that opportunity. Here's what I would do. Just dream big. Really dream big. Okay, let's move on to slide number 24. So now we're going to talk about developing your personal brand. As we said earlier, personal branding is about how you show up because you want people to think about you, and in reality, what they think about you needs to be aligned with what you think about yourself. So, in personal branding, you're going to think about packaging yourself. Think of yourself as a package, and these are pieces that you're going to put in the package. First of all is that P word, passion. You want people to think about your passion when they think of you. You know, oh yeah, she's really just gung ho to, and then, fill in the blank. How do you come across? How do you dress and hold or comport yourself? So I'm not saying you have to come across a particular way, but just know that however you do dress, that it's intentional. Steve Jobs, after wearing different kinds of clothes, he intentionally and very famously wore mock turtlenecks, black mock turtlenecks, and jeans. And that was his outfit. That was intentional. Personal branding and packaging yourself is about what you say and how you say it. It's also how you show up online and in social media. So, what does your LinkedIn profile look like? Do you have a professional photograph of yourself? Or do you have a picture of you with your dog? If you've got a picture of you with your dog, then at least bring in why you've got the picture of the dog and make it relevant to your brand. That's an important piece. At least that's my opinion. And I hope I influence you to understand that don't have any accidents in the way you present yourself. People will recognize you for your experience and your expertise. So you want them to think of you as being somebody who has experience in a particular area and has that expertise. Personal branding is also who you hang out with, who you have relationships with, who's in your sphere of influence, your circles, the people you hang out with. And the last one here is that if you don't purposefully brand yourself, you probably know what I'm going to say next, is that others will do the job for you. And you might not like what they do. So make sure that the way you show up is the way you want to show up. It's the way you want people to perceive you. Okay, we're going to move to the next slide, which is the personal vision statement. Now, originally I had wanted us to do this as an exercise, but we just don't have time. So this is sort of pulling now, we're developing from our passion and asking ourselves, well, what do I want to become, or what do I want to do? And you're going to tie that back to your passion. And I'd love you to use this as a template or a guide so that you can write your personal vision statement. And I thought, I've just started this Fem Resources nonprofit. Why don't I put this up and give it a whirl? And this is my first draft. It's very far from perfect, but please use this as a template for yourself. So my vision statement: I will provide tech women with the vital resources, tools, and support they need to have successful careers because of the challenges women in technology are up against and my passion to topple the status quo. I'll achieve this by being a hub for programs and opportunities, there it should say, for technical women through my nonprofit, Fem Resources. Now, if you don't know, you don't have an answer to this, you're just going to write down, I don't know yet. But again, I'm going to ask you just to make a commitment to discover your passion, because I think you're on the session right now because you want to make a difference. You want to make a change. So this is another piece in that process. Let's go to slide number 26. So now we're on to step number 4. We've been going through all the steps here, and you're going to talk about writing about your core idea. I love this one. The best way to get going on writing is to come up with a few topic ideas. And this doesn't mean that you're going to write a complete article. It's just writing a sentence or two. It could even just be one sentence. So when my client Jennifer wrote about the opinion piece about the swimsuit issue of Sports Illustrated, that's essentially what she sent me was, I'm going to write an opinion piece about the swimsuit issue and how these models are all photoshopped. And what this leads to is this image of perfection that we're constantly trying to live up to. Boom, that was the end of her idea. So you just get this concept that tells a story and a conclusion that you're going to come to. And again, getting back to Jennifer, it was really kind of easy because there was something in the news. So let's say you just can't for the life of you break your particular area down into a topic. It's like, you're scratching your head, you're sitting with a blank page or a blank screen, and you sort of got an editor's block. Go to the news. Go to the news in your industry, in your area, and just start reading and thinking about reading something critically and saying, what could I say about this? What do I agree with? What do I disagree with? What could I add to this? And all of a sudden, this universe of ideas is going to start opening up for you. So the idea is that you're going to be writing and developing what we call a library of intellectual property, and the shorthand for that is IP. Like we said, you can tie into something that's trending, or you can write something that's already been presented, but you've got a new way of thinking about it. So again, in Jennifer's case, plenty of people have written about the swimsuit issue, but she tied it into Photoshopping, into Photoshop. And the 25th anniversary, Photoshop is now having its 25th anniversary. So she had some really good, timely, topical things that were just spot on for her to write about. And then, of course, you could write an opinion piece to the editor, but those are slightly more sophisticated techniques that we won't have time to get into today. But again, it bears being said. Let's move on to slide number 27. All right, so you've now written something and you say, okay, I'm starting to write something. What do I do with this? So think in terms of multiple platforms. You can blog about it if you have your own blog, or you can create your own blog. Or if you work for a company, you can tell them that you want to start blogging for the firm. And I've seen some technology companies that have blogs, and they actually call it thought leadership. And when you look down there, there are very few women on them. So go and get your voice heard on that blog in your particular area of expertise. There may be a company newsletter that you can write an article for, or maybe you have your own newsletter. And then looking outside of your own realm, we look at industry publications, both print and online. You can look at online-only publications. See how many opportunities. It's fantastic. And then, of course, there's the mainstream print and online, what we still call newspapers. And then there are blogs that are curated or edited by what we call influencers. So for blogs by these influencers, we're looking for people whose articles are really heavily read. They have a massive following. You can sometimes find them on Twitter. If you look up online journalists, that's one way to look at it, or go to influencers. I think Stumble Upon may be able to give you some sources as well. And then you can reach out to these influencers that you like to be friends with and ask to guest blog. But make sure before you do that, that you follow their writing and make sure that what you're going to submit to them fits in. So you can start small, just in the company or just writing a newsletter or, sending an article to clients, all the way out to getting your blog in a very public place, meaning on an influencer's platform. I'm just going to touch here a little bit on media relations, reaching out to reporters. It's a whole big topic in itself that we definitely don't have time to get into, and I see we've already been on for pretty much an hour, so I want to keep this moving. If you feel like it and you've got something to say and you're at that point, you can reach out to some select reporters that you've studied, you read their articles, you've looked at the bylines, meaning, you see their name at the bottom of the page, at the bottom of the article, and you know that they're writing about your topic. And you go, I can contribute something to one of those articles, or I've got an idea that they could do a story around. And so you get in touch and you literally let them know. Don't be shy about that. And I know it can be a little intimidating, but you just go ahead and you contact them and say, hey, I do this, I'm an expert in this, and I'm available if you need me for 1, 2, 3 topics that I see that you write about. Oh, and I can bring in other experts if you like to help round out your article. All right, let's go to slide number 28. This is now where we talk about speaking and presenting on your core idea. So speaking really personalizes your message. See, what I'm doing right now is I'm speaking, right? So it's personalizing the message. You could have read an article on this, but how much more powerful it is to be interacting with the speaker or having a speaker present this to you live. The live effect is really powerful, and it amplifies or complements your writing if you are writing as well. Now, if you work for a company, offer to speak at internal meetings in your area. And I'm not familiar with that, so you can look inside, and I'm sure you've got examples of people who've been speaking. You might have said to yourself, geez, I wish I could do that. Well, you know what? You can. And after this presentation, you're going to. I know it. You could research conferences and meetings in your industry and decide that you want to participate in a panel. Or if you're really ambitious, you could get in touch with one of these industry meeting planners and suggest a panel for them. They sometimes put out calls for papers or calls for panels, and you can suggest one with yourself as a moderator. And so you're going to pull all the players together, and it's going to be based around your concept, and you're bringing in other experts, but you're also seen as the person who's organizing it, and it elevates your standing in other people's eyes. I want to touch a second on Toastmasters because I really love Toastmasters. My club in San Francisco has members from Adobe, from Advent Software, from Zynga, the game company, from Dolby, a whole bunch of other companies, other smaller tech firms that you may never even have heard of. But the beautiful thing about Toastmasters is that it lets you try out ideas with a real audience, but without consequences. But the really great benefit is that you can give presentations there and get honest feedback from your fellow members. So if you're hesitant about speaking, and I know I was so hesitant about speaking that I didn't join Toastmasters until a couple of years ago. I mean, I had been speaking before that, but I felt too shy myself to join Toastmasters. I think it was because of the critique. And then I said, you know what? I want to be able to try out things. And that's the beauty about Toastmasters, is that you can try out your message and all kinds of ideas within their structure that you can bring and just get lots of great experience focusing on different aspects of speaking. And even if you're experienced, Toastmasters still lets you try out new ideas. I know of really experienced speakers that earn $15,000 a pop for a speaking gig, and they're members of Toastmasters. Okay, so that should put it in perspective. So my message here is that you seek to speak at every opportunity possible, because you can't speak enough, and it'll balance with the writing that you're doing. And like I said, you'll get practice talking about your message and your concept and how you want to make a difference. So let's move to slide number 29. So this is the last step about keeping your idea new and fresh. How do you do that? Well, first, you need to ensure that it's current. And I'm sure you've been getting signs if it's not relevant. So you definitely need to check for that. And it may be able to be updated, or it just may have passed along. And if your idea has to do with any technology, we know that technology evolves. So it may not be relevant, or definitely may need an update. If you have a new idea, then you're just going to start the process from scratch again. And always remember that it's going to tie into your passion. You're always looking to make a difference, because there is such a thing as having passion for something that's not going to make a difference, and that actually could even be damaging. We see that too much around the world. So we're looking here at positive passion to make a positive change. So again, if you get to that point where you've worked through with your idea and you just feel like it's not sticking anymore for whatever reason, then you can just stop and then go back to the beginning. You've got these steps as a model to be able to follow. Okay, let's move to slide number 30. So I thought it would be really good to show you a personal action plan. And I hope you'll use this as a template for yourself. So we can't do it right now, but we're going to review the essentials. And I created this actually specifically for this webinar. And because, again, that I just started my own nonprofit, I thought, why don't I use my own company, Fem Resources, the new organization. So I'm trying to read this off the slide. The first part is goal and vision. So my vision is to help get more women into tech jobs and staying in tech to achieve gender equity in technology. The actions to achieve these goals: the goal is to form a nonprofit to provide resources and tools for tech women at all career stages. And you can read the rest of those on actions. So measures of success, we've got the key measure will be tech women secure jobs, that research is funded and implemented, and that partners sign on, and that we get women to sign up for the club to belong, and other measures. Then we've got the timings. Then we come up against some obstacles. And look what happens. I said, what happens if I don't get funding? What happens if I don't get any partners? What about this if women don't show up for membership? Or if I have technical issues and I just can't get this thing going? That I get some seed funds, but then I can't get any more money. Or what about if there's a hostile social media about what I'm doing, as we've seen on some work that women are speaking out on, and they get a lot. I have to say this, they get death threats on social media. This can be a very scary world in some places, in some instances. So I then looked at, well, how would I handle these obstacles? And that particular one, I'm putting that, well, I would ignore the hostility where possible, and where it needed to be responded to, that I would. But I would seek alternatives for funding. So, for example, I could go for crowdfunding. Definitely, I would tweak the messaging. Maybe sometimes it's in the way we're presenting what we're doing that it doesn't resonate. So that the idea itself is solid, but it's just that we're not coming up with the right words or the right way of conveying it, or people get confused. They're not quite clear on what we're saying. So let's go to the next slide. And that will be number 31. We're going to look at some barriers, obstacles, and brick walls. So there are things that are outside of our control and things that we can do some things about. So we know those things that are outside of our control, that in places we go, we just feel unwelcome. We feel put down. We feel ignored. People just sort of brush us off. A colleague of mine brushed me off yesterday. I said hello to her, and she just looked at me and whizzed by, and I was taken aback for a moment. So these things can happen to us, and they can rattle us, and we have to stay solid and think, this isn't about me, this is about them. And sometimes, though, this is happening because of gender, because you're a woman. So I've come up with a list of things here that we can do something about it. But this isn't the self-blamey stuff. Well, you can you need to speak louder, or you need to make yourself look bigger, like you're stronger, or have different body language. None of that's here. I'm going to leave that to other people. I've come up with 5 things for us, and I call them barrier busting action items to keep you sane and to keep you on track. The first thing you're going to do is reaffirm your passion. Remind yourself why you're doing this, whatever it is. Remind yourself why. And remember that that passion has to get so strong it can bend metal. Number 2 is assess your situation. And how bad is it really? Okay? How bad is it? Number 3, assess the costs to keep going. If it's really making you sick, is that cost too high? Or is it just a series of nuisances? Or is it something that if you just put on your thick skin, it's really not affecting you that much? Number 4 is assess the cost to leave. So it could be an expensive proposition emotionally, career-wise, to actually shift gears and just move away to try to start over somewhere else. And then number 5, no big surprise, reaffirm your passion. So I realize that this doesn't give a prescription for dealing with obstacles, but it does give you a way to look pragmatically at your unique, challenging situation. So, whether you work for a firm or you're working for yourself, remember that that anchor is your passion. And just always let that be your guide. And if your passion for something that you had has waned, time to move on and try to look for another thing that can really light your fires. Because you'll be a different person when you've got that passion. All right, the next slide is number 36. By the way, I got in touch with the people who created this little slide of imposter with the mouse and the mouse. And I told him what I was using it for. And I said, can I use it just for this presentation? And he said, yeah, just give us some credit. And it's called snorg tease. And it's a made up word. But he asked me what I was using it for. And I told him about the imposter syndrome. And he said, oh, I've never heard of that. I'm going to go look it up. And I told him that women tend to use this concept. So perhaps we've educated one more male into a male ally on the issues that women are up against. So we've been socialized to believe that we're not good enough, some of us at any rate, and that it's too risky to take risks. So my message to you is, please don't doubt what you know, because you're at a point in your life now that you've built up a lot of expertise, you've built up a lot of wisdom, and you're going to be building more and more as you continue through your career. Don't doubt what you've accrued for yourself. And if all else fails, again, go back to that point of passion and what you know is true and should put you back on solid ground. Let's go to the next slide, number 36. No, I'm sorry, that's slide number 33. I hope you're all on slide 33 and we were just on slide 32. So confidence, this is perhaps the stickiest wicket of all. Confidence, or the lack of confidence. And it's a huge obstacle for many women. You know, confidence, self-esteem, I think those two are sort of kind of twin sisters almost to each other. Now, because there's a great presenter who presented on Monday on confidence, I think I don't recall the title of her session, but it was presented by Lisa Marie Jenkins. I strongly suggest you go and look at it if you haven't already attended it. And I think she's going to give you a good grounding in what to do about shoring up confidence when it starts to get a little saggy. And I highly recommend the book, The Confidence Code by Katty Kay and Claire Shipman, if you don't already have it. You can either buy it in your independent bookstore, or you can download it from Amazon onto your Kindle reader. I actually did both. So got it in 2 places. It's a wonderful piece. They have wonderful ideas about how we recognize confidence issues. And I don't want confidence, though, to get in the way of you becoming the renowned authority that you deserve to be. And this confidence thing, you can think you've got it licked, you make some strides, you make some gains, and then all of a sudden, boom, you get hit with it again. So it's an iterative process of moving forward, seeing the obstacle, and just working your way around it, or over it, or through it. So wherever you are, you know, if you have any doubt, this is what to do. Again, you can go back to your passion, and that means speaking out and expressing your ideas. And it does require thick skin. It does require confidence and resilience. And the good news is you can grow a thick skin, you can increase confidence, and you can become resilient. You know, you've probably been hearing about brain plasticity in the last few years. And that is so good news for those of us who just wish we weren't the way we are, because that means we can change. There is so little that's actually hardwired in us. And that's such great news. That means that if we can recognize it, then we have the power to change whatever we need to change to make us just feel better about what it is that we want to feel better about. All right, let's go to slide 34. So I've got a few last words of advice as you embark on your journey to speak out and change the world. And as I suggested earlier, that your success is going to be personal. You'll decide what success means to you. And the 5 concepts that I've come up with here for success is going to help you accelerate your success, whatever that means to you. So these are sort of generic concepts that you can use in however you want, whatever success is going to mean for you. So the first is that you're going to be curious. Be a nosy news hound. And what that means is, I want you to know what's going on in the world. Don't be that person that says, well, you know, I didn't check the news today, or no, I haven't heard of this, or I'm not really interested in that. You need to really start to gorge yourself on what's happening, both generally in the world, nationally in your country, in your industry. Read the news about your company. Just really have a good handle on what's going on. And also pay attention to those areas that touch your particular field of expertise, because that will make you so valuable as somebody who really knows how to connect the dots and make sense of things in ways that others haven't seen. Remember, that's budding thought leadership, where you're able to really see things that others don't see and have ideas about things that others don't have. You're going to be bold. As we've said throughout this presentation, that when you're deeply passionate about something, you'll be bold without even realizing it, because the passion to make a difference is a whopping motivator. And I'm speaking to you from experience. Once I found my passion, and this is my passion now, to help women in technology, ain't nothing going to stop me. I'm on a path, and it's that determination and grit and clarity that when you feel that, you know you're there. And you might wobble a little bit, but your path will be straight. I shouldn't say straight, excuse me. The path will be clear and you'll be able to follow it. Number 3 is to be patient and to practice patience with yourself and with others. Because, especially if we're talking about becoming a thought leader, it's not an overnight process. It's going to take time. Absorbing all of this, assimilating it, does take a little bit of time. And having said that, the flip side is, I also want you to be impatient, meaning you want to take action now. You don't want to wait, because it can't wait. So you could be waiting a long time for good things to happen to you. And I'd love you to adopt this mindset of good things will come if I go out and get them. You know, we said earlier that good things come to those who wait. No, they're not going to. You're going to say that good things will come if I go out and get them. And then you're going to be compassionate. You'll show that you care. And please have compassion for yourself. This is so vital. And it's this sort of cliche, but it's a true cliche that we as women tend to take care of others before we actually take care of ourselves. Or we take care of work before we take care of ourselves. And I'll bring another cliche into the mix, as they say, you know, put your oxygen mask on first before you put an oxygen mask on others. Just do that. Put your oxygen mask on first. Take care of yourself. And take that time to think about how you really want to make a difference in the world. Nothing's going to stop you. Because if your passion is real, you're going to follow it. And you will make that difference in people's lives and in your life. So we're going to go to the final slide here, which is our final slide. I'm going to thank you all for coming here today and for participating. And Deanna, can you tell me what questions we have? Okay, that's great. But if any questions come up, because I realize, you know, we've been through so much material, that if anything comes up, please feel free to contact me. And my information is here on the slide. So just remind me that you're at the webinar, because your name may not know you. And I'll get back to you as quickly as I can. And for those of you who are watching the recording, also, please feel free to get in touch with any questions. And I want to remind, has anybody signed up for the free consult?
I'm sorry about that. I had to switch out my headset.
Deanna. Sorry. We
I
do
don't
have,
know
do we
yet,
have five
but if
people
you
who
do,
want the
you
free
can either
consult?
email me at deanna@globaltechwomen.com or let me know on the Facebook group, and I will forward them to Roberta.
Okay, we might cheat that five. So if you really think that you'd like to have the free 1 hour consult on the phone or by Skype, then go ahead and just send it in. It's we'll have a lot of fun together. You can just work out whatever it is that you want to work out. So I'm going to thank you, Deanna, for creating this incredibly Value Voices conference. Thank you again to all of you. Deanna, you're doing such a valuable service to these curious minds around the world. Thank you so much. This has been an honor
Thank
for
you.
me
Well,
to be
I
able to
am
present
sure
this to
people will
everyone
be
today.
taking what
Thank you.
they have heard from you and reviewing it in their own trajectories. And I'm sure we will be hearing more about this on our Facebook group as well. So thanks everyone for participating. And this is our last session for the day. So I will see you in about 12 hours. And we start again with our last day of the Voices Conference. So thank you, Roberta. And thank you, attendees, and I'll see you in about 12 hours. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.